of uncertain sexuality. The little brother Jake, spoiled and shameless in his thievery of my niche. Alone, there is only the person inside. I've grown to like her better than the stuck-up husk of me. She's not quite silent, shouts obscenities just because they roll so well off the tongue. Not quite straight A, but talented in oh so many enviable ways. Not quite sanitary, farts with gusto, picks her nose, spits like a guy. Not quite sane. Sometimes, to tell you the truth, even I wonder about her. Alone, there is no perfect daughter, no gifted high school junior, no Christina Georgia Snow. There is only Bree. Okay, so my presentation is like really how I got to be up here as a New York Times bestselling author, which is like what all writers want to be because it means you're selling a lot of books, which does translate into, yes, you're making some money. But it's not the goal. The goal is to write the best books possible. If you write the best books possible, you too will stand up here. I promise. So when I teach paid writing, which I do sometimes, I always tell my students, don't start with I was born because nobody cares. But how I was born is a lot to do with how I got here, so I'm starting with how I was born, which was in Long Beach, California. I was adopted at birth. My dad was 72 when he adopted me, and my mom was 42. To put that in perspective, he was born in 1883. He was the son of German immigrants that came to San Francisco. He parlayed a 6th grade education into a thriving steel company that made a lot of money during World War II, and that's kind of how he built his fortune. He worked his butt off. And from him, I learned the value of hard work and honesty. And one thing, if you guys have read my books, you know I write honestly about people. I do not sugarcoat. I don't make things pretty. I make them cuss when they would cuss. I make them when they would have. I mean, all that stuff is in my books because that's what real people do, including teenagers. And as much as some adults would like to believe that stuff doesn't go on, have you guys ever heard the F word, like around here? Just, I didn't think so. Right. All right. So I grew up in Palm Springs, California. The neighborhood I grew up in had like movie stars and sports stars kind of around, and I used to, have a list of them like Kirk Douglas, but you guys are like, who's that? You guys probably don't even know who Michael Douglas, his son, who's also a movie star is, but you guys have heard of Elvis, right? See, I knew there was one. I don't know why it is that, he like sticks out in so many minds, but he does. So he lived around the corner. I met him. My little brother was selling Cub Scout Scoutorama tickets, and so we were like ringing random doorbells and stuff, and he lived in this big gated property, but the gates were open, so we're like, okay. Walked right up to his front door, rang the doorbell, and he came to the door in his boxers. I saw Elvis Presley in his underwear, and it was not pretty. My mom loved books and literature. She also did Shakespeare. This is a picture of her as Kate in Taming of the Shrew. She did Shakespeare at Ashland, but she loved classic literature and poetry, and she read to my brother and I every day, had me reading chapter books before kindergarten. So from her, I learned this love of language and poetry and classic literature. And so thank you, Mom. I really appreciate all that because I'm sure it has a lot to do with why I'm here today. In the year 2000, I tracked down my birth mother, who it was like, in the year 2000, they were telling us like computers were gonna like not be able to tell what year it was because it was like 00 and like all that, and so the world was gonna, blow up or whatever. I'm like, well, you know what? If there's not gonna be any world tomorrow, I want to know where I came from. So I found my birth mother and discovered that she has written poetry her entire life and used to write scripts for Walt Disney. So I think there's like a genetic factor involved here too. When I started high school, we moved to the Santa Ynez Valley. How many of you guys have started a school where you didn't know anybody? It's like really, really hard to make friends, especially when you're starting high school where you know nobody. This valley, which was very tiny, and everybody had been friends since kindergarten, it really just, it had the, I ended up on the edges, and so I was trying to push my way in to the society that really didn't want me. And I tend to write books about kids on the fringe. And I'm pretty sure my high school years, I ended up making friends and ended up with, doing theater and creative writing and all the kind of artistic stuff. They were the best people anyway, because they were nice. Not like the cheerleaders who did never like me. I got them back though, because I have a drug addict cheerleader in one of my books. Yeah. I had horses my entire life. I used to show, that's me at 16, by the way. Notice how straight my hair was, because we used to comb our hair perfectly straight. Now it's like, no, you're supposed to have it wavy. This is all natural. My dad died when I was 16, and so in my junior year, my dad died. My mom kind of went into this deep depression, and so I had to help her through, probate and attorneys and all that. And so that really had the effect of, 16, 17 years old, I had to grow up very quickly to help my mom through this kind of thing. So I kind of lost out on, kind of some of the fun. I did proms and stuff, but it wasn't quite as much fun probably as it would have been as a serious child. Straight A student all the way through school, except for that second sophomore semester, where you're going, I'm never getting out of here. Well, we kind of snuck out. It was not my best semester. But the rest of the time, I was a straight A student. My parents were Republicans. I put this one in because, first of all, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I'm very open about my politics. Bobby Kennedy, we did mock elections in 7th grade, and I drew his name out of the hat. I didn't know anything about politics in 7th grade, but Bobby Kennedy came to in researching him, came to represent for me what my politics was. And at the time, the civil rights movement was in full bore, the equal rights movement for women. Because ladies, when I started high school, we had to wear dresses to school. I was on the committee that changed that. I know, I was a rebel at that. But really, truly, black people did not have the same rights in this country then. Women did not have the same rights in this country. They did not work for equal pay then. The Democratic Party just came to represent, for me, what I thought I, as a young Christian girl, represented. Also, we caucus in Nevada, so I'm an active member of the Democratic Party in Nevada. I was a caucus chair going into the 2008 election. Caucus is a really amazing experience. I know you guys do primaries here, but caucus is about discussion. So what you do, you get everybody in your precinct into the same room, and you try it like I was a Hillary supporter and Obama supporters and Edwards supporters, and then we tried to talk each other into voting for the person we thought was best. And you notice I'm not saying, call each other nasty names, didn't slam each other. That's not what the process should be. It should be about discussion. So if you ever get a chance to at least sit in on a caucus, do, because it's a really amazing process. Published my first poem, a haiku, when I was 9 years old. So I saw my name in print for the first time at 9 years old. Haiku by Ellen Weiner. And I'm like, I'm a finished author. And then it took me a long time. Actually, I published poetry all the way pretty much through high school. But I had this little thought in the back of my mind. And I know you guys saw Veronica Roth yesterday, who's a young author who kind of hit really big with a big book as a young author. You guys, if you're writers and you want to be writers for a living, I can only urge patience, because for most people, they're not 16 years old and write a book and it becomes like a major bestseller. That's not how it works for most of them. It's all right to grow your writing. It's all right to get those rejections. It's all right to have a teacher tell you, you can be a little better, or an editor tell you, maybe you need to revise a little bit, because that's how the process works for most writers. Be patient with your writing. Don't try to, be a major bestseller now, but if it does, I'll take your autograph too. So I've always written poetry. This is a piece of a lyric poem that I wrote. What I write in my books is narrative verse, so it's verse that tells a story. It has to be a little different because I have to have dialogue. I have to get dialogue in there. I have to figure out ways to tell a story rather than through just a single poem. But I do write lyric verse, formal verse. I do all that stuff, and I've been growing my poetry over the years for a long time. So I studied journalism in college. You're going to start seeing pictures of a little girl here. This is the little girl that went on to become Christina in this book. And I want you to see who she was before. And I want you to understand that